In the depths of space, where civilizations rise and fall like dying stars, there exists a simple truth that has governed the galaxy for millennia. Some species are born to rule, others to serve, and the rest to die. The Caliph Empire has built its dominion on this principle, their warrior caste wielding plasma blades that can slice through starship hulls and energy shields that deflect antimatter cannons. But what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? What terror grips the heart of a perfect predator when their most deadly weapon becomes as harmless as a child's toy? Commander Zara Veltara, finest blade dancer of the Caliph's 7th Fleet, is about to discover that in the infinite cosmos, there are always bigger fish. And sometimes, those fish look remarkably human. The galaxy is about to learn why Earth's children don't just survive in the void between stars, they thrive in it. The warning klaxons screamed through the corridors of the Caliph dreadnought Crimson Talon as Commander Zara Velthara strode toward the detention bay, her ceremonial plasma blade humming at her hip. The weapon had never failed her in 2 decades of service to the Empire. It had carved through Vortak battle armor, sliced Nixari energy shields, and ended the lives of countless enemies who dared oppose Caliph supremacy. Today, it would taste the blood of the strange creature they had captured in the Outer Rim. The detention bay doors hissed open, revealing a stark chamber bathed in harsh white light. At its center sat a being unlike anything in the Caliph databases, bipedal, with pale pink skin and strange fur only atop its head. It wore primitive clothing of woven fibers, and most remarkably, it showed no fear despite being surrounded by the Empire's most advanced restraint systems. Human. Zara spoke the word like a curse, her forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. The universal translator rendered her hissing speech into the creature's barbaric language. Your pathetic vessel drifted into Imperial space. By law, you are now property of the Caliph Empire. The human, a male, according to their scans, looked up at her with eyes the color of Earth's ancient oceans. When he spoke, his voice was steady, almost conversational. Commander Velthara, I presume? Your reputation precedes you, even out in what you call the Rim territories. Zara's scaled skin rippled with surprise. How did this primitive know her name? The human ship had appeared on their sensors 3 cycles ago, a crude vessel of metal and ceramic that barely registered as spaceworthy. According to intelligence, humans were a recently discovered species, pre-warp, confined to a single system, utterly insignificant. You will address me as mistress or... Not at all, creature. Zara's hand moved to her weapon. I am here to demonstrate the folly of resistance. Observe. She drew the plasma blade in one fluid motion, the weapon's energy field crackling to life with a sound like breaking thunder. The blade could maintain a temperature of 50,000 degrees, hot enough to cut through the hull plating of a battlecruiser. No known material could withstand its touch. I've seen weapons like that before, the human said, still seated, still calm. Energy-based cutting tools. Quite ingenious, really. The magnetic containment field keeps the plasma stable while allowing for remarkable cutting power. Zara snarled. The creature spoke as if he were examining some museum piece, not the most advanced melee weapon in known space. Silence! You will learn respect. She lunged forward, the blade arcing toward the human's shoulder. Not a killing blow. The Empire preferred their slaves alive, but one that would sever muscle and bone, leaving him crippled and compliant. The plasma edge struck the human's exposed arm, and stopped. Zara stared in disbelief as her weapon, the symbol of Caliph, might simply refused to cut. The plasma field flickered and sparked against the human's skin like water against stone. The temperature readings on her weapon's display showed normal output, 50,000 degrees of contained stellar fire, but the human's flesh remained unmarked. Interesting, the human said, glancing down at where the blade pressed against his arm. I can feel the heat, of course, quite warm, but you'll need something significantly more energetic if you want to cause damage. Impossible, Zara breathed, pulling back the weapon and staring at its unchanged edge. Nothing can... Commander, the human interrupted gently, may I ask what temperature your weapon operates at? The question was so absurd, so casual, that Zara answered without thinking. 50,000 degrees standard. Ah. The human nodded, as if this explained everything. That would be a problem. You see, my species evolved in a rather unique environment. Our star, we call it Sol, is what you might classify as an unusually active G-type. The radiation levels in our home system would be lethal to most carbon-based life. He gestured to the detention field that held him, a barrier that could contain creatures with 10 times human strength. Your restraint system here operates on the same principle as our childhood playground equipment. Magnetic fields, energy barriers, temperature control, all quite familiar to us. Zara's mind reeled. She activated her comm implant. Bridge, run a full spectrum analysis on the human. I need to know what we're dealing with. Captain Thekfar's voice crackled through the comm. Already running, Commander. Results are unprecedented. The creature's cellular structure appears to be naturally resistant to energy-based attacks. Preliminary scans suggest an evolutionary adaptation to extreme radiation. How extreme? Zara demanded. There was a pause. Commander, the human's resting metabolic processes generate more heat than our plasma weapons. His cellular repair systems operate at quantum efficiency levels. According to our xenobiology expert, his bone density is 3 times that of Caliph combat breeds. The human stretched, a casual movement that somehow seemed ominous in the context of their conversation. Commander, I should probably mention, my ship wasn't damaged. I shut down its main systems and let myself be captured. Why? The word escaped Zara's lips before she could stop it. Intelligence gathering mostly. We've been aware of the Caliph Empire for some time. Your expansion patterns, military capabilities, social structure, all quite fascinating from an anthropological perspective. He paused. Also, we wanted to establish first contact in a controlled environment. First contact? Zara's scales darkened with anger. You speak as if we are equals, primitive. The human's expression shifted subtly, and for the first time, Zara saw something other than calm curiosity in his eyes. It was not fear, it was pity. Commander, do you know what humans call the phenomenon when a primitive species encounters superior technology? Zara said nothing. Contact shock. The sudden realization that everything you believed about your place in the universe was wrong. He stood slowly, the detention field flickering around him. Your weapons can't harm me. Your shields can't contain me. Your entire military doctrine is based on projecting energy-based force against beings like yourselves. The detention field collapsed entirely now, sparking and failing as the humans stepped through it like it was made of mist. The problem is, he continued, advancing toward her with unhurried steps, my species spent millions of years adapting to an environment that would instantly kill most of yours. We live inside the radiation field of a star. We breathe an atmosphere that would corrode your lung tissues. Our children play games that would shatter your bones. Zara raised her weapon, knowing it was useless but unable to stop herself. Stay back. I'm not going to hurt you, Commander. That's not why I'm here. The human was close enough now that she could see her reflection in his strange eyes. I'm here because Earth's government wants to propose a treaty. A treaty? Zara's voice cracked. Between the Caliph Empire and a single world? Oh, we're not a single world anymore. Haven't been for quite some time. The human smile was not cruel, but it held depths that made Zara's blood turn cold. We've been expanding for over a century now. Slowly, carefully, learning about our neighbors before making contact. He gestured around the detention bay. This ship, for instance. We've been studying your technology for decades. Your FTL drives, your weapons, your shields, all based on principles we mastered before we left our home system. That's impossible, Zara whispered. Your species has no FTL capability. Our scouts confirmed. Your scouts saw what we wanted them to see. Would you like to know how many human colonies exist within your empire's borders right now? The question hung in the air like a blade at her throat. Zara found she couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. The implications were staggering. If humans had been infiltrating Caliph space undetected, 43 worlds, the human said softly. Mining operations, research stations, agricultural colonies. All hidden, all thriving in environments your people consider uninhabitable. Dead worlds, you call them. Radiation-soaked rocks orbiting too close to their stars. Zara's legs gave out, and she sank to the floor, her weapon clattering beside her. What do you want? A peaceful coexistence, trade agreements. Cultural exchange. Your empire has much to offer. Art, philosophy, scientific achievements. We've been studying your literature through intercepted communications. Quite beautiful, actually. And if we refuse? The human's expression didn't change, but somehow the air in the room seemed to grow heavier. Then you'll learn what humans do to those who threaten their colonies. We're quite protective of our children, Commander. It's something of a species trait. The intercom crackled to life. Commander Valpara, report to the bridge immediately. We have a situation. Zara struggled to her feet, leaving the useless plasma blade where it lay. As she moved toward the door, the human spoke again. Commander, for what it's worth, your reputation as a warrior is well deserved. In different circumstances, we might have been allies.
She paused at the threshold. What's your name, human?
Marcus Chen, 4th Colonial Survey Corps, Terran Federation. He picked up her fallen weapon, examining it with professional interest.
Your metallurgy is quite advanced, by the way. We could learn from each other. Zara fled the detention bay, Marcus's words echoing in her mind. The bridge was in chaos when she arrived, displays flickering, crew members huddled around their stations with expressions of barely controlled terror. Report, she demanded. Captain Tekvar turned from the main view screen, his usually composed features twisted with disbelief. Commander, we've detected massive energy signatures throughout the system. Ships decloak signatures, FTL emergence events, hundreds of them. Reinforcements? Zara asked hopefully. No. Vekvar activated the main display and Zara's world tilted on its axis. The view screen showed space filled with vessels. Sleek, angular ships that radiated power like caged stars. They bore no resemblance to any known design, but their capabilities were undeniable. Each one blazed with energy readings that dwarfed the Crimson Talon. Human ships, the captain whispered. They're everywhere, Commander. They've been there all along, watching us. Waiting. A communication request blinked on the comm board. Thekvar accepted it with trembling claws. A human voice filled the bridge, calm, authoritative, speaking perfect Caliph. Caliph vessel Crimson Talon. This is Admiral Sarah Williams of the Terran Federation Navy. We're here to discuss the release of our diplomatic envoy and to present terms for a mutual non-aggression pact. Diplomatic envoy? Zara breathed. The individual you know as your prisoner. We trust he's been treated according to civilized standards. Tekvar looked at Zara, his eyes wide with the question they both feared to ask. How many other prisoners and specimens throughout the Empire were actually human diplomats, gathering intelligence and waiting for this moment? We are prepared to negotiate, the Kvar finally managed. Excellent. We'll transmit coordinates for a neutral meeting site. Admiral Williams out. The comm channel closed, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Zara looked around at her fellow officers, the finest warriors in the Kalith fleet, and saw her own terror reflected in their faces. They had captured what they thought was a primitive, and instead had awakened something that had been watching them from the shadows, learning their weaknesses, cataloging their strengths. Something that treated their most advanced weapons like curiosities and their most secure facilities like tourist attractions. Commander, Thekvar's voice was barely above a whisper. What do we do? Zara thought of Marcus Chen, sitting calmly in his cell, speaking of 43 colonies hidden within Kalith space. She thought of the human ships now surrounding them. Ships that had been there all along, invisible, patient. She thought of a species that had learned to thrive in the heart of stellar radiation, and saw the Kalith Empire's greatest weapons as mildly interesting toys. We learn, she said finally. We learn everything we can about them, because I have the terrible feeling that the age of Kalith supremacy just ended, and we didn't even realize the war had begun. The human. Marcus had spoken of contact shock, the moment when a species realizes their place in the universe has fundamentally shifted. As Zara stared at the impossible fleet surrounding them, she understood that the Kalith Empire had just experienced the most devastating contact shock in galactic history. And they were the primitives now. The neutral meeting station materialized around them like a nightmare made manifest. It had taken 3 days to reach the coordinates provided by the humans. 3 days during which every sensor array on the Crimson Talon detected nothing but empty space at their destination. Only when they dropped out of FTL did the massive structure decloak, revealing itself with casual indifference that sent chills through every Kalith aboard. The station was enormous, easily the size of a moon, and built with architectural principles that hurt to look at. Surfaces flowed into each other with mathematical precision that spoke of manufacturing techniques beyond Kalith comprehension. Energy readings fluctuated in patterns that suggested technology so advanced it might as well have been magic. Zara stood in the shuttle bay, adjusting her formal diplomatic armor for the 3rd time. The ceremonial plasma blade at her side felt like a child's toy now, more embarrassing than intimidating. Beside her, Captain Thikvar fidgeted with his own ceremonial weapons. while their diplomatic attaché, Sub-Commander Krell Nath, reviewed his notes with manic intensity. "Remember," Thekvar muttered as their shuttle prepared for departure, "we represent the entire Kalith Empire. Whatever these humans want, we cannot appear weak." Zara almost laughed at the absurdity. They had been weak from the moment Marcus Chen walked through their detention field like it was made of air. The question now was whether the humans would be satisfied with dominance or if they required absolute submission. The shuttle journey to the station took 47 minutes, during which their pilot reported increasingly disturbing sensor readings. The station wasn't just large, it was inhabited by millions of beings, most of them human, but with significant populations of species the Kalith had never encountered. "Commander," the pilot's voice cracked with uncertainty, "I'm detecting Vorthak energy signatures, and Nixari bioemissions, and others. Species we don't have in our databases." "Allied with the humans?" Zara asked, though she already knew the answer. "Unknown, but they appear to be working together. The station's defensive systems are unlike anything in our tactical files. They're not just more advanced than ours, they're based on completely different principles. The docking bay that received them was a marvel of engineering that made their own shipyards look primitive. Gravitational fields guided their shuttle to a perfect landing, while atmospheric processes ensured a breathable environment for their species." As they disembarked, Zara noticed their escort, a squad of beings in sleek environmental suits that somehow managed to look both welcoming and absolutely lethal. "Commander Velfara." The lead figure spoke in perfect Kalith as they removed their helmet, revealing a human female with dark skin and silver hair. "I'm Colonel Martinez, Terran Diplomatic Corps. Welcome to Haven Station." "Haven?" Zara asked. "Our name for this facility. It serves as a neutral meeting ground for species initiating formal contact with the Federation." Colonel Martinez gestured for them to follow. "Please, this way. Admiral Williams is eager to meet you." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch into infinity, passing observation windows that revealed the scope of the station's interior. Gardens that defied physics floated in null-gravity chambers, workshops where beings from a dozen different species collaborated on projects using tools Zara couldn't begin to identify. Most unsettling of all were the humans themselves, moving through environments that would kill most carbon-based life with casual indifference. "This station," Krelnath ventured, "how long did it take to construct?" "Haven? About 6 months, standard Earth time." Colonel Martinez spoke as if this were perfectly normal, though the design process took longer. "We wanted to ensure it could accommodate a wide variety of species safely." Unquote. Quote 6. 6 months. The Kalith Empire's greatest space station had taken 40 years to build and represented the pinnacle of their engineering capabilities. These humans had casually constructed something 100 times larger in 6 months. How? The word escaped Zara's lips before she could stop it. Colonel Martinez smiled. "Automated manufacturing, mostly. Once you have the raw materials and the blueprints, construction becomes a matter of patience rather than effort. We've had a lot of practice building in hostile environments." They entered a vast chamber at the station's heart, and Zara felt her breath catch. The room was designed as an amphitheater, with seating areas adapted for dozens of different species. At its center stood a raised platform where a human in military dress uniform waited. Admiral Sarah Williams was younger than Zara had expected, but carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to absolute authority. "Commander Velfara." Admiral Williams stepped forward, offering a human gesture, extending her hand. "Thank you for coming. I know this situation must be unsettling for you." Zara stared at the offered hand, recognizing the gesture from their cultural files. To accept it would be to acknowledge equal status between their species. To refuse would be an insult that could end negotiations before they began. She grasped the human's hand. Admiral Williams's grip was firm but not crushing, though Zara could feel the barely restrained strength in those deceptively delicate fingers. Human bone density was 3 times that of Kalith combat breeds, and their muscle fiber efficiency was beyond anything in known biology. "Please be seated." Admiral Williams gestured to chairs specifically designed for Kalith physiology. "I hope you find the accommodations comfortable." As they settled into their seats, Zara noticed other beings entering the chamber. Vorthak warriors, their crystalline carapaces gleaming under the chamber's lights. Nexari philosophers, their tentacled forms undulating with complex emotions. Species she didn't recognize but whose mere presence suggested the scope of human alliances. "Before we begin formal negotiations," Admiral Williams said, activating a holographic display that filled the chamber's center, "I thought you might appreciate some context. The display showed a star map of unprecedented detail, not just the Caliph Empire, but the entire galactic arm, with trade routes, territorial boundaries, and population centers marked in impossible precision. This is our current understanding of local space, the Admiral continued. Your empire, as you can see, controls roughly 12% of the inhabited systems in this sector. 12%. The Caliph Empire, masters of the galaxy, controlled 12% of local space. The remainder is divided among 47 distinct species groups, ranging from single-system civilizations to multi-sector confederations. What you call the unknown regions are actually quite well populated. Vekvar leaned forward in his chair. Our expansion fleets have never encountered resistance on this scale, because most species prefer to avoid conflict when possible. When your fleets entered contested space, the inhabitants simply relocated rather than fight. Admiral Williams touched a control, and the display zoomed in on Caliph territory. However, several of these vacant worlds were actually human colonies. Red markers appeared throughout Caliph space, dozens of them, marking human presence in systems the Empire considered securely controlled. You've been studying us, Zara said, her voice barely steady. For over 60 years, yes. Since first detecting your expansion patterns, we've maintained observation posts throughout your territory. Your species exhibits remarkable military sophistication and cultural depth, but your intelligence-gathering capabilities are limited. The word hit like a physical blow. The Caliph prided themselves on their strategic intelligence networks, their ability to identify and neutralize threats before they became problems. Why reveal yourselves now? Krelnath asked. Admiral Williams' expression grew serious. Because your empire is approaching the boundaries of 3 major interstellar powers, and they're not as patient as we are. The Hector Sovereignty, the Zephyrian Collective, and the Voidwalkers have all issued formal warnings about Caliph expansion. War is inevitable unless we can establish a framework for peaceful coexistence. The display shifted, showing the galactic political landscape in its terrifying entirety. The Caliph Empire was a tiny island surrounded by vast oceans of space, controlled by civilizations they had never suspected existed. The Hector Sovereignty alone controls over 400 star systems. Admiral Williams continued. Their military doctrine is based on complete eradication of opposing forces. No prisoners, no treaties, no mercy. They've been wondering why we prevented them from dealing with what they consider the Caliph problem. Zara felt the blood drain from her face. Prevented them? The Terran Federation has been serving as an unofficial buffer between your empire and several major powers. We've negotiated agreements, mediated disputes, and in some cases actively intervened to prevent conflicts that would have resulted in the complete destruction of Caliph space. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of the station's systems. Zara tried to process what she was hearing. The Caliph Empire, masters of the galaxy, had been under the protection of these humans without ever knowing it. What do you want from us? Vakvar finally asked. Admiral Williams stood and walked to the edge of the platform. Recognition of Terran Federation territory within your current boundaries. Establishment of formal diplomatic relations. And most importantly, your agreement to participate in the Galactic Cooperation Framework, which is a mutual defense and trade organization that currently includes 23 species. Members agree to resolve conflicts through arbitration rather than warfare, share certain scientific and cultural resources, and maintain open communication channels. Krelnath shuffled through his notes frantically. What are the military obligations? None, initially. Member species maintain complete sovereignty over their internal affairs and defensive capabilities. However, should any member face existential threat from external forces, other members are obligated to provide assistance. Zara's mind raced. It sounded reasonable, too reasonable. There had to be conditions, restrictions, some way these humans would leverage their superior position. What's the catch? She asked bluntly. Admiral Williams smiled, and for a moment, Zara glimpsed something predatory in that expression. Members of the framework agree to certain behavioral standards. No expansion through conquest. No slavery or forced labor. No genocide or species-wide extermination. And no development or deployment of certain categories of weapons. What categories?
Planet killers.
Consciousness-destroying agents. Temporal manipulation devices. Dimensional warfare systems. The Admiral paused. Technologies that threaten the stability of local space-time or the fundamental nature of sapient existence. The casual way she listed technologies that existed only in Caliph theoretical physics texts was more terrifying than any threat could have been. And if we refuse? Tekvar asked. Then the Terran Federation withdraws its protective influence, and you deal with your neighbors directly. Admiral Williams returned to her seat. I should mention that the Hector sovereignty has been remarkably patient, but they've scheduled a final solution to the Caliph expansion issue for next month, unless we can provide evidence of changing circumstances. The ultimatum hung in the air like a blade. Join their organization and accept their rules, or face extermination from enemies they had never known existed. We need time to consider, Zara said. Of course. You'll have access to all our files on the species and organizations we've discussed. We've prepared quarters for you aboard the station while you deliberate. As they were escorted to their accommodations, Zara's mind reeled with implications. The humans had turned their capture into a rescue, their empire's expansion into a liability, and their military supremacy into a childish delusion. In her quarters, luxurious by any standard, and specifically adapted for Caliph physiology, Zara found herself staring out at the station's vast interior. Humans moved through environments that would instantly kill her, working alongside species that represented civilizations beyond Caliph imagination. A soft chime indicated a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Marcus Chen, the diplomatic envoy whose impossible resistance had started this entire nightmare. Commander, he said, entering without invitation. I thought you might have questions. Why us? She asked. Why interfere in Caliph expansion at all? Marcus settled into a chair designed for human physiology, looking utterly relaxed in what should have been hostile territory. Because sapient life is precious, and we've seen what happens when aggressive civilizations encounter superior force. Usually, it ends in extinction. You could have simply destroyed us. We could have, yes. Several of our allies suggested exactly that. But humans have a peculiar trait. We prefer to find ways to coexist rather than eliminate perceived threats.
He paused. Also, your species has produced remarkable art and philosophy.
It would be a tragedy to lose that. Zara laughed bitterly. Art and philosophy. Is that all we are to you? Your people, Commander. Different from us, perhaps, but no less deserving of a chance to grow and learn. The universe is vast enough for all of us. And if we choose not to join your framework, Marcus's expression grew sad. Then you'll face the consequences of 60 years of expansion without understanding the galactic political landscape. The Hector sovereignty doesn't negotiate, Commander. They don't take prisoners. They don't leave survivors. How do we know you're not manipulating us, using these supposed enemies to force our compliance? Because in 3 days, a joint Hector-Zephyrian task force will arrive at the edge of Kalia space to begin cleansing operations. You can monitor their approach on long-range sensors. Admiral Williams has agreed to delay them until you've made your decision. Marcus stood to leave, then paused at the door. Commander, your species has spent centuries believing they were the apex predators in this galaxy. I understand how difficult it must be to learn otherwise, but predator or prey, that's not what determines survival in the long term. What does? Adaptability. The willingness to learn, to change, to find new ways of existing when the old ways no longer work. He smiled sadly. Your blade couldn't harm me, but that doesn't make me your enemy. Sometimes, the strongest response to superior force is not resistance, but alliance. After he left, Zara sat in the artificial twilight of her quarters, contemplating the impossible choice before them. Submit to human authority and join their galactic organization, or maintain Caliph independence and face extinction from enemies they had never suspected existed. Outside her window, the impossible station continued its functions, housing millions of beings from dozens of species, all working together under human leadership. It should have been chaos, species with different biologies, different cultures, different evolutionary imperatives trying to coexist in the same space. Instead, it was harmony, terrifying, inexplicable harmony. Zara activated her comm system and sent a priority message to the Caliph High Command. They needed to know what they were facing, what choices lay before them, and what the consequences of those choices would be. The age of Caliph supremacy was over. The question now was whether the age of Caliph survival was about to begin. The response from Caliph High Command came 18 hours later, and it was everything Zara had feared it would be. She stood in the station's communications center, reading the encrypted message while Admiral Williams waited patiently beside her. The humans had not only allowed her to contact her superiors but had provided encryption keys that made Caliph military codes look like children's puzzles. They refuse, Zara said finally, her voice hollow with the weight of her species' doom. The Caliph High Command declares that the Empire will never bow to alien authority, regardless of the consequences. Admiral Williams nodded sadly. I was afraid they might choose that path. Pride is often the most expensive luxury a species can afford. There's more, Zara continued, her claws trembling as she gripped the communication device. They've declared you and your Federation enemies of the Empire. Military forces are being mobilized for a preemptive strike against all human colonies within Calith space. Ah. The Admiral's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. That's unfortunate. For them, I mean. The casual nature of her response sent chills through Zara's scaled skin.
You don't understand.
The Empire commands 700 combat vessels, including 12 dreadnoughts. Our ground forces number in the billions. This isn't some minor colonial skirmish. Commander, may I show you something? Admiral Williams activated a holographic display that filled the room. These are the current positions of all Calith military assets. The display was impossible. It showed not just the locations of every ship in the Calith fleet, but their crew complements, weapons loadouts, fuel status, and mission parameters. Information that should have been accessible only to the highest levels of Imperial Command was laid out like a child's toy. We've been monitoring your military for decades, Admiral Williams continued. Every ship, every base, every weapons development facility. We know your capabilities better than your own strategists do. Zara stared at the display, her mind struggling to process the implications. You've been spying on us all this time. Intelligence gathering is a necessary component of peaceful coexistence. We needed to understand your capabilities and intentions. The Admiral manipulated the display, showing detailed schematics of Calith weapon systems. Your plasma blade technology, for instance. Quite effective against most known materials, but useless against molecular-level energy dispersal fields. Impossible. Our weapons can cut through starship hulls. Because those hulls are made of conventional matter bound by electromagnetic forces. Human cellular structure operates on different principles. Admiral Williams turned to face Zara directly. Commander, your species evolved in a relatively benign environment. Stable radiation levels, predictable atmospheric conditions, moderate gravitational stress. Humans evolved inside the radiation field of an active star. Our biology had to develop defenses against forces that would destroy most known life. The display shifted, showing a cross-section of human cellular structure. Even with her advanced understanding of xenobiology, Zara could barely comprehend what she was seeing. Human cells were protected by multiple layers of energy-absorbing organelles. Their DNA was triple redundant and self-repairing, and their entire metabolism was designed to function in conditions that would be instantly lethal to Caliph physiology. This is why your weapon couldn't harm me. Marcus Chen's voice came from behind them. Zara turned to see him entering the room, still wearing that maddeningly calm expression. 50,000 degrees is well within normal operating parameters for human cellular structure. We're literally built to survive inside stellar coronas. That's not possible, Zara whispered. Commander, where do you think humans come from? Marcus asked gently. We didn't evolve on a paradise world with perfect conditions. We came from a planet where the star's radiation would sterilize most biospheres, where the magnetic field fluctuations would scramble most neural systems, where the gravitational tidal forces would tear apart most geological structures. Admiral Williams added, Earth isn't a garden world, Commander. It's a nightmare planet that somehow produced a species capable of thriving in conditions that would kill everything else we've encountered. And then we spread to even worse environments. The display changed again, showing human colonies throughout the galaxy, but these weren't the green, peaceful worlds Zara had imagined. They were radiation-soaked hellscapes orbiting pulsars, ice worlds in the void between stars, gas-giant atmospheres where the pressure would crush starship hulls.
We don't just survive in hostile environments, Marcus continued.
We prefer them. Your dead worlds are our suburban neighborhoods. Zara felt her legs give out, and she sank into a nearby chair. The scope of her misunderstanding was staggering. The Calith Empire had been expanding into what they thought was empty space, never realizing they were moving through someone else's backyard. The military action your High Command is planning, Admiral Williams said, returning to her seat, will target 43 human colonies within Calith space. Approximately 60 million civilians, including children. Civilians? Zara's voice cracked. Families, Commander. Scientists, artists, teachers, miners, farmers. People who have been living peacefully on worlds you considered uninhabitable, hoping never to be discovered because they knew discovery would mean war. The weight of genocide settled on Zara's shoulders. Her empire was about to commit mass murder against a species that had been hiding from them, not to avoid conquest, but to avoid having to destroy them. "What will you do?" she asked. Admiral Williams was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "We will protect our people, Commander, by any means necessary." Meaning, the Caliph fleet currently approaching human colony worlds will be intercepted and destroyed. Every ship, every crew member, every weapon system. Complete elimination of the threat. Zara's blood turned to ice. 700 ships will be reduced to constituent atoms within the next 6 hours. Admiral Williams finished calmly. "We had hoped to avoid this outcome, but your High Command has made that choice." The communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. Admiral Williams accepted it, and suddenly the room was filled with tactical displays showing fleet movements throughout Caliph space. "Admiral," a human voice reported, "Task Force Omega is in position. All Caliph military assets have been tagged and targeted. Awaiting your orders." "How many?" Admiral Williams asked. 734 vessels total. 12 dreadnoughts, 47 heavy cruisers, 168 light cruisers, and 507 support vessels. Total crew complement approximately 4,200,000. 4 million Caliph warriors, the finest military force in their empire's history, about to be annihilated by an enemy they had never seen coming. "Admiral, please." Zara struggled to her feet. "There has to be another way. Those are soldiers following orders, not war criminals." "Commander, what would you have us do? Allow them to massacre our civilians? Stand by while they destroy colony worlds full of children?" Admiral Williams's voice remained calm, but there was something terrible in her eyes now. "Humans have exactly one inviolable rule. We protect our young. Threaten human children, and you discover why we survived on a world that should have killed us. Give me a chance to talk to them. Let me explain what they're facing." "Talk to whom?" "Your High Command has already made their decision. Your fleet commanders are under orders to begin bombardment of civilian targets within the hour. Then jam their communications. Disable their weapons. You have the technology, and then what? Your empire regroups, builds new weapons, develops countermeasures, and tries again in a few years? How many times do we repeat this cycle before we're forced to eliminate the threat permanently?" Marcus stepped forward. "Admiral, perhaps we could consider a demonstration of force instead of total destruction." Admiral Williams looked at him sharply. "Explain. Show them what they're facing. Disable their fleet without destroying it. Give Commander Velthara a chance to convince her people that continued resistance is futile. The risk is minimal. If they refuse to listen after seeing our true capabilities, then we proceed with elimination. But we give them one last chance to choose survival over pride." Admiral Williams considered this for a long moment. "Very well. But understand, Commander," she turned to Zara, "this is the only mercy your species will receive. If your people choose to continue their aggression after this demonstration, we will end the Caliph Empire permanently." The tactical display shifted, showing new orders being transmitted to the human fleet. Instead of annihilation, the mission parameters now called for complete system shutdown of all Caliph vessels. All ships, Admiral Williams spoke into the communication system, modify mission parameters. Implement Protocol 7. Total systems disruption without hull breach. Prepare for live capture of all enemy personnel. Acknowledged, Admiral. Initiating Protocol 7 in 60 seconds. Zara watched the display in fascination and horror as human ships materialized throughout Caliph space. Not just a few vessels, but hundreds of them. They had been there all along, cloaked and waiting, positioned to eliminate the entire Caliph fleet in a coordinated strike. "How many ships do you have?" she whispered. "Enough," Admiral Williams replied simply. The tactical display showed the moment of contact. Caliph ships throughout the Empire suddenly went dark, not destroyed, but completely disabled. Engines, weapons, life support, communications, everything simply stopped working. 734 vessels became 734 coffins drifting in space. But they weren't coffins. The display showed human ships moving into dock with each disabled vessel, boarding parties securing the crews and ensuring their safety. It was the most precisely executed military operation Zara had ever witnessed, and it had rendered the entire Caliph military helpless in less than 5 minutes. "Emergency life support has been activated on all Caliph vessels," the tactical officer reported. "Boarding operations proceeding on schedule. No casualties reported. No casualties." They had neutralized the most powerful military force in Caliph history without killing a single soldier. Commander, Admiral Williams turned back to Zara. Your people now have a choice. They can acknowledge the reality of their situation and negotiate for peaceful coexistence, or they can continue to resist and face complete annihilation. What do you think they'll choose? Zara thought of the High Command, of the prideful generals and admirals who had built their careers on Caliph supremacy. She thought of the warrior culture that valued honor above survival, that would rather die than admit weakness. They'll fight, she said quietly. Even if it means extinction, they'll fight. Then they'll die, Admiral Williams said with finality. And it will be their choice. Admiral, Marcus interjected, what if we gave them a different option? What if Commander Velthara could speak to her people not as a defeated enemy, but as someone who has seen the larger universe? Explain. Let her return to Caliph space with full knowledge of the galactic political situation. Let her people see the recordings of this conversation, the tactical displays, the evidence of human capabilities. Give them a chance to make an informed decision about their future. Admiral Williams studied Zara carefully. Would you be willing to serve as an ambassador for your people, Commander, to help them understand that survival requires adaptation? Zara thought of her species, proud and warlike, facing extinction because they couldn't accept that the universe was larger and more dangerous than they had imagined. She thought of the 43 human colonies hidden within Caliph space, families and children who had been living in secret, hoping never to be discovered. She thought of Marcus Chen, sitting calmly in a detention cell while their most advanced weapons failed to scratch his skin, speaking of contact shock in the moment when species realize their place in the universe has changed. Yes, she said finally. I'll help them understand. Then you'll carry a message back to your High Command, Admiral Williams said. The Terran Federation offers the Caliph Empire one final opportunity to join the galactic community peacefully. If they refuse, if they choose pride over survival, then we will implement a final solution to the Caliph problem. What kind of final solution? Admiral Williams' expression grew cold. The same kind your people were planning for human colonies, Commander. Complete sterilization of all Caliph worlds. The difference is we have the capability to carry it out. Zara's entire body went numb. They were talking about genocide on a scale that defied comprehension. Billions of lives, entire worlds, the complete extinction of her species. You would do that? Murder an entire civilization? To protect human children? Yes, Commander, without hesitation. Admiral Williams stood, her decision made. Your transport is being prepared. You have 70 to 82 hours to convince your people to choose survival. If they refuse, the Caliph Empire ends, and we ensure it never threatens anyone again. As Zara was escorted back to her shuttle, Marcus Chen walked beside her. Commander, I know this seems harsh, but you have to understand, humans spent millions of years learning that the universe doesn't care about our survival. We had to become very, very good at ensuring our own continuation. By threatening genocide? By being willing to do whatever is necessary to protect our young. It's not cruelty, Commander, it's evolution. We became a species that values life above all else, and that means we'll destroy anything that threatens that life. The shuttle bay doors sealed behind her as Zara departed the station, carrying with her the fate of an entire empire. Below her, she could see the impossible structure continuing its functions, housing millions of beings from dozens of species, all living under human protection. The age of Caliph supremacy was over. Whether the age of Caliph extinction was about to begin would depend on choices made by leaders who had never learned that pride was a luxury only the strongest could afford. And in this galaxy, humans were the strongest thing that had ever evolved.